Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin. Beneath the hush of the forest, under the carpet of moss and fallen leaves, lies a secret world where roots stretch like rivers, weaving their stories silently in the darkness. To walk across the soft forest floor is to walk above hidden highways of life, channels of breath and exchange. What we see above the soil, the tall spines of trees, their crowns swaying with light, is only half of their truth. The other half lingers underground, unseen but never still, alive with whispers too soft for human ears. Roots spread like gentle fingers, curling around stones, threading through grains of soil, sensing their neighbours in ways we are only beginning to understand. They move slowly, but with purpose, as if each tip of each root holds an ancient memory of how to find water, how to seek companionship, how to braid with another root and hold the soil from slipping away. These underground hands do not act alone. They are part of a great conversation, a chorus carried not just by wood and bark, but by something smaller, something stranger. The fungi that thread themselves through root and soil, weaving connections like silver threads through a dark loom. Scientists call it the mycorrhizal network. But in soft words, you might call it the forest's web of friendship, or the quiet speech of trees. Through these fungal bridges, trees send messages, share sugars, and trade information. One tree can warn another of drought, of beetles, of the sharp bite of disease. Another can send food to a shaded seedling, a gift of life for a child it may never meet. It is not a language of sound, but a language of molecules, of carbon and nitrogen, of chemical notes sent across a network as delicate as lace and as vast as the forest itself. Imagine bending close to the soil, pressing your ear against the moss, and listening not for words but for pulses of meaning carried in silence. In those dark corridors, trees pass along their breath, their memories of sunlight, their savings of sugar made from air and light. A mother tree, broad and ancient, her roots spread wide like the wrinkles of time, may send her strength into the roots of her young. When storms rage, or when the earth grows thirsty, she does not hold back. She gives because in the forest the survival of one is bound to the survival of all. Now picture how slow this life feels. While we live in quick hours and fleeting days, a tree measures time differently. Its conversations are not rushed but stretched across seasons, across years. Where we might send a word in a second, a tree sends its whispers in rhythms that flow like tides, slow, deliberate, patient. To them, a year might be a phrase, a century might be a chapter. Yet in that slowness there is depth, a richness of meaning like listening to the earth itself exhale. The roots also anchor memory. Soil holds the taste of rain, the scent of decay, the trace of long-gone fires. The network remembers because fungi that live today are born from threads that lived generations ago. When trees fall, their bodies return to the ground, feeding the same web that once nourished them. And so each tree that lives is nourished by ghosts of its ancestors, by the forest that came before. The ground beneath us is not empty. It is alive with the breath of history. Scientists have watched with delicate instruments as one tree shaded beneath the canopy received sugars from a neighbour. They have traced nitrogen, marked with invisible tags, as it travelled from root to root, slipping across fungal filaments like letters sliding through a secret mail system. They have seen old trees feed saplings, even when those saplings are not their own kin. The forest seems to care less for ownership than for balance. Where one is weak, another gives. Where one is strong, it shares. To live in a forest is to live in an economy of kindness, though it is written in chemistry, not in words. Now imagine, deeper still, how this changes the way we see a forest. No longer a collection of lonely trunks standing side by side, but a breathing body, a living community where every root, every thread, every grain of soil is part of something larger. What appears silent is full of quiet conversations happening just out of reach of our senses. A forest is not many trees, it is one tree, spread into many forms, speaking softly through the dark. If you walk in the woods at dusk, when the air cools and the shadows lengthen, you may feel this presence. The stillness of the trunks is only a mask. Beneath your feet they are whispering, touching, giving. They are not separate. They are bound together by filaments finer than silk, by trust older than memory. And in knowing this, you begin to see the forest not just as a place of shade and birdsong, but as a mind, a slow, sprawling mind stitched together in roots and soil. Let us linger with that image. A mind made not of neurons, but of trees. A wisdom not in words, but in patience. The forest does not hurry, but it endures. Its whispers may be slow, but they last longer than our lifetimes. To listen to the roots is to be reminded that connection is older than speech, and that silence too has its voice. So the next time you stand in a forest, pause. Close your eyes. Let your breath move as slowly as the trees. Beneath you, in the damp soil, an ancient network is alive, feeding, showing, speaking. You cannot hear it, but you can feel it, like a hum beneath your skin, a quiet reminder that life is never alone. The roots are whispering still, carrying the secrets of the forest from one tree to another. And if you wait long enough, perhaps those whispers will brush against your own heart. Beneath the canopy where light and shadow weave together, the story of the roots deepens. The forest floor, with its quiet covering of ferns and moss, conceals an architecture as grand as any city, though built in silence and darkness. If Section 1 was an introduction to whispers, Section 2 is an immersion into the full conversation. Here we wander deeper into the idea that these underground bridges are not only conduits for food and warnings, but also for memory, resilience, and balance. Consider how carbon, the building block of life, moves within the forest. Trees drink in sunlight, turning it into sugars, storing energy as if collecting pieces of day to keep within themselves. Yet they do not hoard it. Through their roots and fungal partners, they pass carbon into the soil, offering it to neighbours, feeding the invisible economy beneath. In lean years, this generosity becomes survival. A shaded sapling, too small to gather much light, can still live because its elders share their reserves. When winter stretches long, the green shoots that would have died in hunger are sustained by the kindness of unseen threads. What makes this possible is the intimacy between root and fungus. A tree's root tip presses into the soil, and a fungal filament twines around it, wrapping like a glove. In some species, the fungus even pierces into the root's cells, not as an invader, but as a guest welcomed into the home. This union has lasted hundreds of millions of years, older than forests themselves. Long before flowers bloomed, before birds sang, roots and fungi had struck this pact, exchange of gifts for mutual survival. The fungus brings water and minerals from the soil, stretching far beyond the reach of a root. The tree offers sugar, born from the alchemy of light. Together they build networks stronger than either could alone. Now imagine these networks not as lines, but as living rivers flowing in every direction. A fungal thread may connect the roots of dozens of trees, even trees of different species. A pine may speak to a birch. A fir may feed a maple. Though they rise into different shapes, their underground voices join in the same chorus. Scientists tracing these threads have found that information does not stop at family borders. It travels wherever the network allows. The forest is not divided by species as we once thought. It is stitched together, like many voices blending into a single song. Through this chorus, warnings travel. When insects bite at one tree, that tree releases chemical messages into the air and into the soil. Its neighbours, upon receiving the signal, may prepare their defences, producing bitter compounds in their leaves to discourage hungry mouths. In this way, danger is shared. Knowledge becomes protection. A tree attack does not fall alone. It cries out and the forest responds. But it is not only danger that passes along these hidden threads. Nutrients flow too, in ways that reshape how we think of survival. In shaded valleys where light is scarce, the elders feed the young. In places where drought presses hard, those with deeper roots give to those with shallow ones. It is a redistribution, as though the forest itself understands fairness. Survival is not a contest, but a shared task. And in this sharing, the forest thrives where isolation would have meant collapse. There is a poetry in the slowness of these exchanges. Where human cities trade goods in frantic haste, the forest's marketplace is deliberate, unhurried, almost meditative. Sugars move like drifting currents, measured in seasons rather than seconds. Nitrogen, drawn up from decomposed leaves and fallen logs, passes slowly from fungus to root, from root to root. The forest waits, and in waiting it endures. Time here is patient, and patience is its strength. Let us step even deeper into the soil itself, where life unseen holds the threads together. For every grain of earth there are countless microbes, each shaping the chemistry of this world. Bacteria, too small for the eye, process the leftovers of death, turning decay into nourishment. Fungi weave through them, carrying the products of this transformation to the roots above, and so the dead feed the living, the fallen feed the standing. Every tree that falls becomes part of the network's memory, stored not in stories but in molecules. The forest recycles itself endlessly, never forgetting, always weaving past into present. Consider the resilience this creates. When storms uproot giants, when fire scorches trunks, when insects devour leaves, the forest does not end. Through the network, seeds waiting in the soil sense the signals of new space, new light. Saplings surge upward, fed at first by the lingering generosity of roots still alive underground. The death of one becomes the life of another. It is a circle written not in tragedy, but in renewal. The forest does not fear loss, for loss is part of its design. Some scientists call this the wood wide web, a playful echo of the internet. But where our networks are made of wires and code, theirs are made of living filaments, each thread as fragile as silk, yet strong enough to bind generations. Unlike our inventions, which serve only the present, The forest network carries the weight of centuries. It does not vanish when power is gone. It persists in soil, in shadow, in stillness. It reminds us that the most enduring connections are those written into the fabric of life itself. Pause for a moment and imagine yourself as a seedling, barely taller than a hand, hidden beneath the dense shade of towering elders. Without help, you would fade in darkness, yet your roots, delicate and thin, find the touch of a fungal thread, and through it, a current of sugars flows into you. Above, the canopy blocks the sun, but below, an invisible sun of generosity keeps you alive. In time you grow, and one day you will give back, feeding another who waits in shadow. This is the rhythm of the forest, not competition, but continuity. Even the air above is touched by this underground conversation. When roots and fungi exchange, gases are released. Carbon dioxide, methane, the breath of soil. These whispers rise, joining the atmosphere, shaping climate itself. A forest is not only a collection of trees, it is a regulator of the planet's breath, a keeper of balance between sky and ground. Its hidden voices ripple outward, touching winds, clouds, even oceans. The local becomes global, the quiet becomes vast, and so we return to the image of the roots, not as silent anchors, but as storytellers. They carry tales of droughts past, of rains remembered, of neighbours cared for. They whisper of cycles unbroken, of patience rewarded, of resilience learned. Their voices are not loud, but they do not need to be. They move with the strength of slowness, the dignity of time. To hear them, we must learn to listen differently, not with ears, but with imagination, with patience, with reverence for silence. The forest teaches us that connection is the essence of survival. No tree stands alone, no root lives without touch. The soil itself is a memory, a record of gifts given and received. And in this soft, unseen network, there is a lesson for us, that to thrive is not to hoard, but to share, not to compete, but to belong. Beneath the hush of leaves and the stretch of branches, the forest shows us how life becomes strong, not by standing apart, but by standing together. Now, as dusk falls and the shadows grow long, imagine once more pressing your hand to the forest floor. Beneath your palm, thousands of threads stretch and weave, carrying sugars, carrying warnings, carrying love written in the language of chemistry. It is the heartbeat of the forest, slow but steady, eternal in its rhythm. In this hidden pulse you feel not only the life of trees, but the life of the earth itself speaking softly, always beneath your feet. As we arrive in the final movement of this story, the forest draws us deeper into its secret heart. The roots that whisper beneath the soil are not only messengers of survival and resilience, they are keepers of mystery, bearers of quiet truths that echo across centuries. To complete this tale, let us sink further into their silence and imagine the full circle of their existence, where beginnings and endings blur, and where the hidden world of roots reflects something larger, the poetry of all life woven together. Picture the oldest tree in a forest. Its trunk is wide enough that several people holding hands could not encircle it. Its bark carries scars of lightning, storms, and the chisel of time. Above, its branches still reach for light, though some have broken under snow and wind. Yet its greatest strength is not in what you see, but in what lies beneath. Roots, centuries old, stretch out like veins of memory, connecting not only to its own kin, but to strangers, to saplings, to fungi that have lived and died and lived again. This tree is a library. In its rings, in its roots, it holds the history of droughts, of fires, of seasons of abundance. It remembers not with words, but with wood and soil. And through its network, it shares those memories, offering resilience to the forest around it. When this elder tree finally falls, as all trees must, its story does not end. The trunk may splinter, the canopy may crumble, but its roots linger in the soil, still alive for a time, still feeding neighbours with the sugars stored deep within. Even in death it gives. Its body becomes a cathedral for mosses, fungi, beetles and birds. What was once standing becomes a home, a shelter, a feast. Slowly, year after year, the great tree is undone, but undone into life. The forest does not mourn the way we mourn, for in its circle loss and renewal are inseparable. The elder becomes the soil that will nourish the young. This is the secret generosity of trees. They give not only while they live, but long after. Now imagine yourself small enough to follow a root thread, slipping between grains of soil, wandering down into the fungal corridors. The deeper you travel, the more you see how endless these paths are. Fungal threads stretch farther than the roots themselves, forming webs so intricate they could span fields. They are highways for molecules, but also for meaning. When scientists observed that trees warn one another of insect attack, they uncovered only one layer. What else might pass through this web, too subtle for us to trace? Could there be signals of drought long before leaves wither? Could there be whispers of seasonal change, of shifts in soil chemistry, of an unspoken anticipation of spring? Each signal is a thread, and each thread adds to the forest's unseen wisdom. The forest then becomes something more than the sum of its parts. It is not a collection of individuals, but a vast organism pulsing with shared breath. A forest is, in its own way, a mind, not a human mind, not a mind of quick thoughts and sharp words, but a mind of patience, of seasons, of cycles. Its memory is stored in rings and roots, in the DNA of seeds, in the quiet resilience of fungi. Its attention stretches not over seconds, but over centuries. Where we hurry, it waits. Where we consume, it gives. Where we divide, it connects. To see the forest as mind is to let go of our narrow definition of intelligence, and to open ourselves to the possibility that wisdom exists in forms we cannot measure. Think of how this perspective changes the way we walk among trees. A trail is not simply a path between trunks, it is a crossing through veins and voices. Each step presses into a body alive with whispers. When we cut down a tree, we silence not only its future songs, but its part in the network's present. When we clear a forest, we do not simply remove wood, we sever a mind that has been thinking slowly for centuries. The loss is not only ecological but poetic, the silencing of a conversation older than we are. And yet, in the smallest sapling, in the tiniest thread of fungus, the potential for that mind lives on, ready to grow again if given time. The patience of forest teaches us humility. We measure success in years, but trees measure in centuries. We dream of progress, but forests dream of balance. To them there is no rush, for the seasons always return, and in their returning is all that is needed. They do not ask to be more than they are. They do not strive to outpace the sky. They endure, they adapt, they share. Perhaps this is the deepest whisper of the roots, that strength lies not in speed, but in belonging, not in accumulation, but in generosity. Pause now and imagine standing at the edge of a forest at dawn. Mist curls between trunks, and dew gathers like stars on the tips of grass. Beneath your feet, thousands of roots stir softly, carrying their slow messages. You cannot hear them, yet they are there. The elder trees feed the young reach for light, the fungi stitch them together. The soil holds the memories of rain, and all of it hums in silence, a silence filled with meaning. In that moment you realize that to be human is not to stand apart from this network, but to stand within it, another creature of breath and exchange. We too are connected. The air we breathe is exhaled by leaves. The food we eat grows from soil fed by roots and fungi. The climate we depend on is balanced by forests that breathe with the planet. To forget this is to forget ourselves. To remember is to awaken to a gentler way of living, one that honors the unseen threads. The roots whisper not only to each other, but to us, if only we pause to listen. And so the story of the roots closes, not with an ending, but with a return to silence. The forest continues its conversations, patient, enduring, slow as the turning of seasons. Its whispers are always there, whether we notice them or not. To walk among trees is to walk within a living poem, written in soil and shadow, in sunlight and silence. And though we cannot translate every word, we can feel the meaning, that life is connection, that generosity is survival, that even in stillness the world is alive with quiet voices. The roots whisper still. They whisper beneath your feet, beneath the moss, beneath the stones. They whisper through centuries, through storms and sun, through the rise and fall of empires. They whisper to each other, and they whisper to you. Slow down, breathe, belong. In their patience, in their sense, they remind us of something we have almost forgotten, that we too are threads in the fabric of earth, and that the forest story is also our own. When you breathe in the quiet of a forest, you're not only filling your lungs with air, but with the very breath of leaves. Each inhalation carries the work of countless green blades, each exhalation of the forest mingling with your own. The story of leaves is the story of air, of sunlight woven into matter, of invisible exchanges that sustain every life. To walk among trees is to step into a breathing cathedral, where every leaf is a stained glass window filtering light into nourishment, turning what cannot be seen into what can be touched and lived. Leaves are soft alchemists. They hold within their delicate tissues the power of photosynthesis, the process by which light becomes sugar and sugar becomes life. Rays of sunlight, older than memory, strike the earth after travelling across space for millions of years. And when they touch a leaf, that light is caught, held, transformed. The leaf drinks carbon dioxide from the air, and with water drawn up from roots, it spins molecules into sweetness. In this way, the forest captures sky and soil together, weaving them into green flesh. Every breath you take is tied to this unseen labour, to this quiet miracle repeating in countless leaves above you. Think of how leaves move with light. In the morning, when the sun begins to rise, their cells stir awake, opening tiny pores, stomata, that dot their surface like small mouths. Through these openings, carbon dioxide slips in and oxygen flows out. The air is not still here. It is constantly exchanged, filtered, made new. By afternoon, the forest is filled with the exhalations of trees, oxygen given freely, without price, without hesitation. At night, when the sun is gone, the paws rest, slowing their breath, waiting for the next dawn. The rhythm of day and night is mirrored in the rhythm of leaves, each one a tiny lung of the earth. There is a memory carried in this exchange, a memory of air itself. For billions of years, the planet's atmosphere was not what it is now. Before plants, before leaves, the air was heavy with carbon dioxide, thin in oxygen, unable to support animals as we know them. It was only when ancient algae and later plants began their steady exhalations that the air changed. Breath by breath, molecule by molecule, they transformed the sky. Oxygen grew abundant and life expanded. Every breath we take is a gift from this history, a continuation of the forest's long exhale across time. Pause and imagine standing still beneath a canopy. Above, thousands of leaves tremble in the breeze, each one a quiet worker, each one shaping the very air that touches your skin. They are more than decoration. They are engines of survival, pumping oxygen into the world, absorbing carbon, storing sunlight. To breathe here is to join the forest's ancient ritual, to share in the same exchange that has bound creatures and plants together since life began. The forest does not simply surround you, it enters you, becomes part of you, molecule by molecule, breath by breath. Leaves are also storytellers of time. Each season writes its chapter in their flesh. In spring, tender and new, they are pale and delicate, stretching eagerly toward light. In summer, they deepen to rich greens, full of strength, working tirelessly to feed the tree. In autumn, as days shorten and light fades, they release their sugars, letting go, and their colours change into fire, amber, crimson, gold. This surrender is not death, but transition. The leaf falls, and as it crumbles into soil, it becomes food for roots, returning its gifts to the earth. The cycle continues, each leaf a page in the endless book of the forest. Scientists have traced the gases released by forests and found that they ripple into the sky, shaping not only the air but even the clouds above. Leaves release water vapor as they breathe, and this vapor drifts upward, forming clouds that shade the earth, that carry rain, that cool the air. In this way, the breath of leaves becomes weather, becomes climate. Forests are not only lungs, they are regulators of the planet's body, guardians of balance between sky and soil, between sunlight and shadow. Think of the intimacy of this connection. The air you exhale, heavy with carbon dioxide, may enter the pore of a nearby leaf, be stitched into sugar, and later travel down into roots or across to another tree. Your breath becomes part of the forest's breath. You are not separate from these exchanges, you are woven into them. Every exhalation is an offering, every inhalation a gift received. To realize this is to feel less alone, to know that the boundary between your body and the forest is not fixed but porous, shifting, shared. Now picture a great rainforest, where leaves form layers upon layers stretching high into the sky. The canopy captures most of the sunlight, but beneath it, smaller plants adjust, adapting to shadows, their leaves thinner, broader, designed to drink what little light filters through. Every level of this green world breathes differently, yet together they form a single exhalation. The rainforest, vast and intricate, exhales so powerfully that it helps regulate the entire planet's oxygen and carbon balance. Its breath reaches far beyond its borders, touching winds, oceans, and even the air filling your lungs now. And yet the story of leaves is also fragile. When forests are cut, when trees fall in great numbers, the breath of the earth falters. Oxygen still flows, but less freely. Carbon builds unabsorbed. The balance wavers, the memory of air becomes clouded. To care for leaves, then, is to care for our own breath. Their survival and ours are entwined. Every forest standing is not only a shelter for birds and deer, but a shelter for the air itself, for the invisible life that moves between all creatures with each breath. As we drift toward the close of this section, let us return to the image of standing beneath a tree, the air cool and soft. You inhale. The molecules entering your lungs may have been exhaled by a leaf only moments ago. You exhale. The carbon you release may soon slip into a pore, joining the forest's work of weaving sugars, feeding roots, sustaining life. This exchange is older than memory, older than speech. It is the simplest of rhythms, yet it carries the weight of survival, of history, of connection. To breathe, then, is to participate in the secret life of leaves. It is to join the forest in its endless work of transformation, of giving and receiving, of turning sunlight and air into the foundation of all that lives. The breath of leaves is not separate from your breath. It is your breath, stretched across time, across space, across the vast green fabric of the world. And as you walk through a forest, each inhalation is a reminder. You are not alone. You are part of the breathing body of the earth. If the first breath of the forest is the gentle rhythm of leaves exchanging gases with the air, then the second breath is deeper, slower, woven into cycles of seasons and centuries. The leaves do not simply breathe for themselves. They breathe for the tree, for the soil, for the entire forest, and for the living planet beyond. To linger with this truth is to see how every leaf is a node in a vast web, how the exhalation of one becomes the inhalation of another, how time itself is stitched together in the green fabric overhead. Consider how a single leaf begins its day. As dawn spills across the horizon, molecules of chlorophyll awaken, absorbing light, passing energy through a chain of reactions so intricate that even scientists marvel at its precision. Electrons leap, bonds break and reform, and out of this dance comes the splitting of water molecules. In this hidden act, oxygen is released into the air, hydrogen is saved for building sugars, and energy is stored like treasure. Every sunrise is an invitation to begin again, every leaf a patient artisan repeating this miracle thousands of times each day. And though we cannot see it, the air itself is renewed in this quiet work. But the forest's breath is more than oxygen. It carries water too. Leaves draw water upward from the soil through the xylem, and then, through tiny pores, release it into the air as vapor. A single oak can exhale hundreds of liters of water each day, misting the atmosphere with invisible streams. Multiply this by millions of trees, and entire weather systems are born. Rainforests, especially, are engines of clouds, their leaves feeding the sky with rivers of vapor. The air we feel as cool breeze, the rain that falls on distant lands, all of it is touched by the breath of leaves. They do not simply shape their own survival, they shape climates, carrying moisture far beyond the edges of the forest itself. Now imagine a tree not as an isolated organism, but as a link in a chain of exchanges stretching across the globe. A molecule of oxygen released by a maple leaf in Canada might drift with winds, cross oceans, and be inhaled by a child in another country. A droplet of vapor released by a rainforest tree might rise, condense, and fall as rain thousands of miles away, feeding rivers, crops, and lives far removed from the tree that birthed it. The breath of leaves is borderless, and through it, the planet is bound together in an endless cycle of giving and receiving. The memory of air itself is etched in the chemistry of leaves. Within their tissues, they store not only sugars but traces of the gases they absorbed, tiny imprints of the atmosphere at the moment of their growth. Scientists studying ancient leaves pressed into stone can read the story of the air from millions of years ago. They find records of times when carbon was high, when oxygen was scarce, when the planet warmed or cooled. Each fossil leaf is like a page in Earth's diary, written not in ink but in the ratios of atoms. The forest remembers, and the memory is carried forward, each new leaf writing its own line in the continuing tale. There is also memory in the colours of leaves. When autumn arrives, chlorophyll retreats, and other pigments reveal themselves, carotenoids of gold, anthocyanins of red. These colours are not random beauty, but reflections of stored energy, of the tree's decision to reclaim nutrients before letting the leaf fall. The blaze of colour is the memory of summer light being drawn back into branches, saved for the cold months ahead. The forest glows with its own recollections, a farewell song before winter's silence. Pause to imagine yourself in such a forest at autumn's peak. The air is crisp, filled with the faint scent of fallen leaves returning to soil. Above, the canopy blazes with fire-coloured light, each leaf a lantern burning its final moments. And yet, beneath the beauty lies practicality. The tree is not mourning, but preparing, conserving what it can, surrendering what it must. The cycle continues, and with each fallen leaf the soil is fed, and the promise of spring is nourished. The breath of the forest is not only present, it is layered with the past and the future, with memory and anticipation. The breath of leaves also carries sound, though not in ways we usually think. When wind stirs the canopy, it rustles through countless leaves, creating whispers and sighs, a chorus of green voices. To the human ear, it is music of calm. To the forest, it is part of a dance of movement, a way for air to move evenly across surfaces, for gas exchange to remain steady. The rustle of leaves is more than sound. It is the living rhythm of breathing made audible, a reminder that what we hear as whispers are part of the mechanics of survival. But there is something else, quieter still, almost beyond our grasp. Scientists have begun to observe how plants, including leaves, respond to subtle vibrations, even to faint sounds. Some experiments suggest that roots grow toward the sound of water, that leaves may alter their movements in response to gentle tones. Could it be that the breath of leaves is not only chemical but also vibrational, tuned to frequencies we do not yet understand? If so, then the forest breath is richer than we imagine. A symphony of molecules and vibrations layered together in silence. The interconnection does not end with trees alone. When animals breathe, when fungi decay fallen leaves, when fires burn, all of these too alter the air. The forest breathes not as trees alone, but as a whole system, a collective of countless beings sharing the same atmosphere. The memory of air, then, is not only botanical but communal, shaped by everything that lives and dies within the forest. The breath is shared, the memory collective. No single leaf owns the air. It is the heritage of all life. Consider how fragile this balance is. When forests shrink, when leaves fall not by season but by axe and flame, the planet's breath falters. Oxygen remains, but the rhythm slows and carbon builds like a heavy shadow. The climate shifts, the balance tips, and the memory of air is rewritten in a harsher script. To honour the breath of leaves is not only to marvel at their beauty, but to recognise our responsibility. The forest's exhalation is our inheritance, and its loss would be our silence. As we draw this section to a close, imagine lying on your back beneath a canopy in summer. Sunlight filters through green glass, painting the air with shifting patterns. You breathe in, and the oxygen that fills you may have been made only moments ago, shaped by a leaf above your head. You breathe out, and your carbon may be drawn in at once, beginning its transformation. In this cycle, there is no separation, only exhale. You are part of the forest's breath, and it is part of you. The memory of air flows through both, binding you to trees, to time, to the patient rhythm of the living earth. As we come to the final part of this story, let us drift deeper into the poetry of leaves and the air they shape. If section 1 was the gentle rhythm of breath, and section 2 the memory carried across time and climate, then this last reflection is the quiet resolution, the insight that closes like twilight settling over the forest. It is here that we begin to see the breath of leaves not as an isolated act, but as a gift, a thread woven through every corner of life, binding us to the living earth in ways both visible and invisible. Imagine for a moment walking into a forest at dawn. The night has been cool and dew clings to the edges of every leaf. As the first rays of sunlight strike, the dew glitters like scattered stars, and the leaves begin their work again. Oxygen flows, water vapor rises, sugars form silently within veins. This is not only the forest awakening, it is the planet itself beginning another day of breath. The air is cool and clear, each inhalation crisp with renewal. In this quiet moment, the unity of leaf and sky, of root and soil, of breath and life is palpable. The breath of leaves is more than chemistry, it is balance. By drawing in carbon dioxide, they help temper the heat of the world, storing carbon within wood, bark and soil. By exhaling oxygen, they create the very atmosphere that animals, humans, and countless creatures depend upon. This balance is fragile yet enduring, held steady not by a single leaf, but by billions working in harmony. To see a leaf flutter in the wind is to see a small part of the machinery of balance, the subtle adjustment of the planet's breath. The beauty lies not only in what we can see, but in what is unseen, in the molecular ballet that unfolds with every moment. Think of the intimacy of this exchange. Every breath you take is not entirely your own. It is shared, passed along, recycled through countless lives before you. The oxygen you inhale today may once have been exhaled by a fern in a damp jungle, by a blade of grass in a meadow, by a pine needle high on a mountain. The carbon you exhale will be taken in by leaves, transformed, stored, and eventually returned. Breath is the most personal of acts, yet it is also the most universal. In breathing, we join an ancient communion, a silent participation in the forest's endless work. The leaves also teach us about impermanence and renewal. They are never permanent. Each spring brings new ones, each autumn lets them fall. They live for a season, sometimes for several, but always with the knowledge that their role is temporary. Yet in their brief lives, they accomplish wonders. They build the tree's strength, shape the air, feed the soil, support the world, and when they fall, they give again, becoming mulch, becoming food for microbes, becoming the dark, fertile soil that will nourish roots in years to come. The lesson is gentle yet profound. Even the smallest, most temporary life can have an enduring impact when it participates fully in the cycle of giving and receiving. Imagine autumn again, when the forest blazes with fire before fading into quiet. The colours of the leaves are like a farewell song, a glowing reminder of the work that has been done, the sugars gathered, the air shaped, the life supported. Their fall is not an ending, but a continuation, the passing of one chapter into the next. The soil beneath becomes rich with their remnants, and from this richness spring will return. The breath of leaves then is not only in the air but in the ground, in the promise carried forward into the next generation. The forest as a whole becomes a kind of great lung, rising and falling with the seasons. In summer, the inhalation is strong, carbon drawn in, oxygen released in abundance. In winter, the breath slows, many trees resting, their work diminished but not gone. Over the years, this rhythm shapes the air we all share. And when vast forests are destroyed, it is not only their wood that is lost, but their breath, their rhythm, their role in keeping balance. To lose leaves is to lose part of our own ability to breathe, even if we cannot feel it immediately. The forest's silence would eventually become our silence. Yet there is hope in every leaf that unfurls. Even in the smallest tree, even in a sapling barely reaching a child's height, the same miracle unfolds. Light is caught, air is transformed, balance is restored. Each new leaf is a declaration that the earth still breathes, still strives toward life. If forests are allowed to grow, if leaves are allowed to flutter and fall and return, then the cycle remains unbroken, and the planet continues its long inhalation and exhalation. It is fragile, yes, but it is also resilient, as long as we do not sever the connection. Now picture yourself sitting quietly beneath a great tree. You close your eyes and you breathe. In, out. The air fills you, leaves you. It feels like yours, but it is not. It is the forest's, it is the planet's, it is ancient and shared. You are not outside the cycle, but inside it, as much a part of the breathing as the tree itself. This realization brings calm, a soft reminder that to live is to participate in something greater than yourself, something that has been unfolding for eons and will continue as long as leaves catch the light. The breath of leaves and the memory of air remind us of our place in the living world. We are not separate, not self-sufficient, but woven into the same cycles of exchange as the trees, the soil, the sky. Every breath is a gift, every breath a reminder of connection. When we forget, the world grows smaller, harsher. When we remember, the world opens into wonder, into gratitude, into belonging. And so the story closes not with an ending, but with a breath. Inhale, the gift of leaves. Exhale, the gift returned. The cycle continues, steady as seasons, fragile yet enduring, always renewed. The leaves breathe still, and through them so do we. Their memory is written in the air, and as long as we breathe, their story lives within us. Beneath the towering trees and the dancing leaves, there exists a world so quiet that it almost escapes notice. The forest floor is not merely dirt, it is a living tapestry, a secret heartbeat of life pulsing slowly beneath our feet. Here, in the dim light filtered through layers of green, every fallen leaf, every rotting log, every small insect is part of a rhythm so subtle that it can only be felt by those who pause long enough to listen. If you close your eyes and breathe the damp, earthy air, you can sense it, the forest's pulse, hidden yet steady, like a deep drumbeat beneath the music of wind and bird song. The soil itself is a reservoir of life richer than any garden we may cultivate. Within its dark embrace, fungi weave intricate networks, thin as threads yet vast as continents, connecting roots of trees, shrubs, and grasses. These mycelial highways transport water, nutrients, and chemical messages, linking individual plants into a single cooperative entity. Trees share their sugars with neighbours who are struggling, warn others when pests invade, and even influence who grows where. The forest floor is not silent. It whispers constantly, though its language is chemical and tactile, a hidden communication we are only beginning to understand. Imagine a single square metre of soil. Beneath its surface, millions of bacteria toil ceaselessly, breaking down fallen leaves, twigs, and the remnants of creatures that have died. Each bacterium plays a role in decomposition, releasing nutrients that can be absorbed by roots. Every crumb of organic matter is transformed, recycled into the living world again. The process is slow, patient, and elegant. What seems like decay is actually creation. Death becomes a medium for life. Walking over this ground, we tread upon a story billions of years in the making, written in invisible scripts of atoms and molecules, of carbon and nitrogen exchanged quietly, invisibly, without fanfare. Small creatures add their own rhythm to the pulse. Earthworms tunnel, aerating the soil and enriching it with their castings. Beetles chew through fallen bark, releasing nutrients as they go. Tiny insects, spiders and nematodes perform chores so meticulous that without them the forest could not survive. They are the unsung keepers of the floor, and their lives intertwine with the trees above. Every creature, from the smallest bacterium to the largest predator, is part of a buckle, part of a hidden pulse that beats slower than our eyes can follow, but faster than the growth of mountains. Decomposition itself is a kind of storytelling. Each fallen leaf carries the memory of sunlight, of rain, of wind. As it breaks down, that memory is encoded into the soil, feeding the roots that will produce future leaves. The forest floor is a living archive, holding not just nutrients but time itself. Some logs decay over decades, others in seasons, and yet each contributes to the greater narrative of the ecosystem. By walking across the floor, we step across history, across countless acts of creation, transformation that have occurred unseen for generations. Fungi, particularly mycorrhizal networks, are perhaps the most magical of all these hidden workers. They connect one tree to another, sometimes spanning meters, sometimes spanning hectares. Sugars travel along these fungal highways from the leaves above into the roots below and through the underground network to distant neighbours. If one tree is struggling, it may receive aid from another, nutrients funneled through a vast invisible network. Scientists have begun to call this the Wood Wide Web, a reminder that even in solitude no tree stands entirely alone. Beneath our feet, cooperation thrives in quiet abundance, invisible but indispensable. Water courses through this hidden realm as well. Rain falling on leaves drips down to the soil, sinking into channels carved by roots, insects, and natural decay. Moisture lingers in pockets where fungi and bacteria thrive, creating microhabitats that host entire communities of life. Each drop participates in an intricate dance, moving between organisms, feeding life while washing away waste. The forest floor is a sponge, a living reservoir, capturing and releasing, storing and giving. The pulse of water mirrors the pulse of life, flowing, connecting and sustaining. There are places on the floor where light barely penetrates, yet life flourishes. Mosses cling to shaded logs, their tiny leaves absorbing just enough light to sustain their slow growth. Slime molds wander, seeking sustenance with movements so gradual they appear frozen. Yet over hours and days, they cover expanses of soil, tracing invisible patterns. Even in darkness, the forest floor is full of subtle activity, of secret work. Life does not wait for notice. It persists quietly, creating order in the seeming stillness. The pulse continues, unnoticed by most, yet steady and relentless. Roots themselves add texture and motion to this hidden realm. As they grow, they push through soil, slowly displacing particles, creating pockets for air and water. They encounter obstacles, rocks, fallen branches, other roots, but adapt, bend, and find paths forward. Roots communicate with fungi, receiving advice, nutrients, and sometimes chemical signals warning of threats above. The forest floor becomes an underground city of interlaced pathways, a labyrinth of life conducting its business quietly and methodically. Each tree's roots are a thread in a vast tapestry, contributing to the hidden pulse that sustains everything above. Life on the forest floor is also about patience and cycles. Seeds lie dormant for years, waiting for the right moment to sprout. Fallen fruit nourishes insects who in turn spread seeds further afield. The floor remembers every season, storing energy in decayed matter and in chemical signatures of past growth. Every cycle is a repetition with subtle variation, a rhythm maintained over centuries. The pulse here is slow, measured, like the heartbeat of the planet itself, connecting the present to the past and the past to the future. If we pause and listen, we might almost hear it. The faint sigh of decomposing leaves, the whisper of roots stretching through soil, the gentle rustle of moss under small feet. It is a pulse that cannot be measured by a clock, only sensed in stillness, felt in our breathing as we align ourselves with the rhythm of life beneath the trees. The forest floor teaches us that not all movement is loud, not all growth is visible, not all work demands recognition. The most vital processes are often hidden, quiet, continuous, like the pulse beneath our feet. Now imagine tracing a single path through this secret world. A droplet of rain falls onto the soil, trickles into a tunnel carved by worms, nourishes bacteria, fungi, and roots, and eventually supports a new shoot above. A leaf falls, breaks down, releases nutrients, and becomes part of the cycle once more. Tiny insects crawl over the surface, oblivious to the larger world, yet crucial to it. The pulse of the forest floor is made of countless such stories, all running simultaneously, intertwining, invisible yet essential. It is a quiet symphony of persistence, a reminder that life is a network, sustained not by grand gestures, but by countless small acts of balance, cooperation, and endurance. This pulse continues through day and night, through storm and drought, through centuries. The floor may seem unchanging, but it is alive in constant motion, carrying the weight of time while quietly shaping the future. And as we walk above, we carry this hidden rhythm within us, whether we notice it or not, because the forest is not separate from the living world. It is its foundation, its lungs, its heartbeat. To walk upon it is to walk upon life itself, steady and resilient, fragile yet enduring, always pulsing, always moving, always present. The hidden pulse of the forest floor is not only a rhythm of life, It is a keeper of ancient memory. It holds the echoes of forests long gone, of storms endured, of fires survived, of seeds that once took root and trees that rose skyward only to fall again. Within the soil, time does not pass as it does in our busy human world. It lingers, it rests, it layers itself quietly, one leaf at a time, one raindrop, one footprint, one fallen branch. And in those layers, the story of the forest is written in a language of decay and rebirth, of texture and breath, of slow, sacred change. Every piece of organic matter that settles to the ground becomes part of this unfolding tale. The branch that falls from a great tree, the feather that slips from a bird's wing, the soft body of an insect who has lived its full life. Each is woven into the fabric of the forest floor. Decomposition begins almost at once, but it is not an ending. It is the gentle hand that turns one form of life into another. Fungi emerge, delicate and hungry, digesting with enzymes so refined they can unlock the stubbornest wood. Bacteria move in, unseen but indispensable, unlocking nutrients and releasing gases that rise back into the world above. The floor is a place of transformation, of constant renewal. As these processes unfold, the soil itself changes. Rich, dark humus forms, a mixture of organic material so fine and fertile that entire forests grow tall upon it. It is soft to the touch, cool and fragrant, and alive with unseen threads of life. In it are stored not just nutrients, but the memory of what has lived before. A tree may stand tall, its crown touching the clouds, but its roots drink from the memory of past trees, from the nutrients given by leaves and branches long dissolved. The soil is a vessel of generosity, built from death, yet never defined by it. It is the quiet cradle from which all forest life rises. The floor is not still, though it appears so. It is in constant quiet motion. Ants tunnel in organized lines, moving soil and carrying seeds. Worms wind their way through the dark, creating spaces for air and water. Mice gather fallen fruit, squirrels bury nuts, and beetles crawl beneath bark, all contributing to the soil's rhythm. Each movement is small, often unnoticed, yet together they shape the very foundation of the forest. The floor is not a passive surface, it is a living field of activity, humming softly beneath each step. There is a tenderness in how the forest floor holds life. Fallen logs become nurseries, cradling mosses, lichens, and even new saplings. These nurse logs are bridges between generations, their softened wood offering nutrients and shelter to those just beginning. It is a gentle image, life born upon the body of the past, roots digging into what once stood tall. This is not decay as loss, but decay as offering. The pulse of the forest floor is made of such offerings, repeated endlessly without ceremony, without expectation of return. It gives because giving is the nature of its being. Even in Cerno, the floor listens. It receives the footsteps of deer, the landings of birds, the slither of reptiles. It holds the imprint of paws and hooves, of seeds dropped and buried. It absorbs the rain, softens the sound of wind, and muffles the noise of the world. The forest floor is the earth's ear, always listening, always remembering. It responds not with speech, but with growth, with mushrooms blooming after rain, with shoots emerging from cracks in stones, with sudden bursts of life in places where all had seemed still, And within that silence, something else grows. Connection. Every root that touches another, every fungal thread that weaves its way between trees, every shared molecule of nitrogen or carbon is a bond. These are not loud bonds. They do not shout or demand attention. They whisper, they hum, they persist. And through them, the forest becomes more than a collection of trees. It becomes a single body moving slowly, breathing deeply, its heart pulsing in the soil beneath. There is a spiritual softness to this truth. For so long, humans looked at the soil as something to be walked over, to be used, to be shaped for our needs. But when we look closely, when we peer into the world beneath our feet, we see that it's not dead, it is not empty, it is alive with grace. To kneel on the forest floor is to place your hands on an ancient library, one that remembers all who have come before and quietly shapes all that will come next. Every handful of soil contains more living organisms than there are stars in the sky we see at night. Each of them plays a part, each adds to the pulse. The forest floor also holds a resilience that is often underestimated. When wildfires sweep through, reducing trees to ash, it is often the soil that carries the first signs of recovery. Protected underground, seeds remain dormant, fungi survive in their hidden threads, and bacteria wait in quiet stillness. And then, when the rains return and the heat fades, life stirs again. Green shoots appear where blackened stumps once stood. Insects crawl back into the charred remains. Slowly, patiently, the pulse resumes. The forest rebuilds itself from the ground up, guided by the quiet strength of its floor. Think now of time not in years but in layers. A forest floor may contain decades of fallen leaves, of dust from crumbling bark, of the fine powder of ancient wings. Archaeologists and ecologists can read these layers like a scroll, seeing how climates shifted, how animals migrated, how humans once walked among these trees. The soil is not merely the present, it is a preserved memory of life lived slowly, of change written in grains and fibres, of hope stored in seeds that wait and wait and wait. Let yourself imagine walking barefoot through this world. The soft crunch of twigs, the cushion of moss, the coolness of shaded soil, all of it connects you to the forest's pulse. You may not feel the microscopic movements, but your body knows them. Your breath slows, your thoughts soften. You begin to align with the rhythm around you. In this moment, you are no longer separate. You are part of the floor's memory, part of its giving, part of its story. The forest accepts your presence not with noise, but with calm, offering you a place in its ongoing breath. And so the hidden pulse of the forest floor continues. Through decay and growth, through silence and motion, it beats on, unnoticed yet essential. It is the heart of the forest's body, the keeper of its past, the wellspring of its future. Every tree that stands owes its life to this humble ground. Every bird that sings does so above this quiet miracle. And every step we take upon it is a step into a world so full of life that it humbles us, slows us, heals us. Beneath us, always the forest floor breathes. It gathers the pieces of life that fall, and with patience and care it builds the future. Its pulse does not seek attention, it simply continues, faithful and enduring, carrying the forest forward, one silent heartbeat at a time. As we draw near the quiet heart of this story, the forest floor invites us to stay just a little longer, not to hurry away with answers, but to linger with the questions it gently stirs. Beneath every fallen leaf and hollowed log, beneath mossy stones and the shadows of trunks, the pulse continues, slow, steady, unafraid of time. If you sit still long enough, if you quiet your breath and place your hand to the earth, you may feel it. Not a thump, but a presence, a sense that the ground beneath you is alive with memory, with motion, with the rhythm of life itself. This hidden pulse does not ask to be noticed. It does not cry out or compete. It simply continues, carrying within it the weight of what has fallen and the promise of what will rise. Every part of the forest depends on this foundation, on the slow and faithful turning of matter into life. It is here, on the forest floor, that transformation becomes sacred, and nothing is wasted. A leaf is never just a leaf. A fallen feather is never just forgotten. Everything is received. Everything is used. The floor is an altar of change, and decay is its silent prayer. Let us walk together through this world again, slowly. See how the roots of trees twist like quiet serpents through the dark, tracing paths of memory. Hear the faint rustle of an insect beneath the litter, the gentle sigh of water soaking into sponge-like soil. Observe how a fungus blooms, soft and white against the browns and greys of rot, a ghostly flower born of shadows. Each step forward becomes a step deeper into mystery, into stillness. You're not merely walking across Earth, you're moving across stories, layered and infinite, all whispering their truth in the hush between sounds. And within those layers, life never ceases. Tiny creatures live entire lives in a pinch of earth. Mites, springtails, larvae, they feed, grow, reproduce and vanish, never seen by the eyes of most, yet entirely essential. They are the ones who break down the broken, who carry the pieces from what was into what will be. A log crumbles, not because time touches it, but because 1,000 tiny mouths and tendrils gently unweave its form, returning its strength to the forest. This is not destruction, it is generosity. And in this endless generosity, the floor gives rise to everything we know. There is a softness to the decay here. It does not rush. A branch may lie for years before it fully disappears. A stump may linger like a memory, its bark peeling away in slow confession. And yet, even as it fades, it shelters. It offers itself to mosses and mushrooms, to beetles and centipedes. It becomes a refuge. In the forest, the fallen are not discarded. They are welcomed into a new chapter, one that is no less beautiful than standing tall. The pulse of the forest floor teaches us about time in a way no clock can. It is the time of seasons, of cycles, of slow unfolding. It reminds us that growth does not always reach upward. Sometimes it moves downward, into the earth, into quiet, into roots and rest. A seed does not leap toward the sky. It sleeps first. It listens. It waits in the darkness until the soil warms and water finds it and a crack appears in its shell. Then, only then, does it begin. And even then, it reaches down before it reaches up, down into the forest floor, into the memory, the nutrients, the pulse. This truth is mirrored in our own lives. We too must sometimes go inward, must return to quiet, must lie still for a while before rising. We must decompose old versions of ourselves, let old dreams fall and settle before new ones can emerge. The forest does not fear this, it embraces it. It teaches us that endings are never only endings, they are thresholds. They are soft beginnings, wrapped in stillness, waiting for light. The smell of the forest floor tells this story best. It is rich, loamy, full of unseen chemistry. It smells of rain and roots, of age and promise. There is comfort in it, a reminder that even in darkness creation is taking place, that the invisible is not empty, but full, that beneath the surface life is preparing its return. When we breathe it in, we are breathing in that promise. We are becoming part of the pulse, if only for a moment. Even the animals know. Deer sleep among the ferns, their breath mingling with the mist. Foxes tread lightly, their paws pressing into the soft loam. Birds drop seeds from above, trusting the ground to hold them. Everything trusts the floor. Everything returns to it, and in doing so they help it grow. A single acorn pressed into the soil by the foot of a bear may someday rise into an oak that feeds thousands. A single feather may nourish a fungus that strengthens the roots of a sapling not yet born. There is no waste here, only exchange. And what of us? When we stand still in a forest, when we touch the ground, do we not feel a similar return, a calming, a rerouting of something lost? We are not separate from this system. Our bodies too are made of carbon and breath, of minerals and memory. We return to the soil in the end, just as leaves and logs and all living things do. And though this may seem somber, it is not. It is a joining, a soft reunion. The forest will remember us too, not in name, but in nutrients, in roots, in the breath of moss and the bloom of fungi. The pulse of the forest floor is the heartbeat of the planet. It is quiet, constant, forgiving. It does not ask for praise, only respect. It does not seek attention, only balance. And though it lies hidden, it carries everything, past, present, future, in its slow, silent rhythm. To honor it is to walk gently, to live with awareness, to understand that every fallen thing is not lost, but transformed, that the earth beneath us is alive with stories we can feel, if not yet fully understand. So let us close with this image, a quiet clearing, light filtering through tall trees, the ground soft beneath you, rich and dark. You sit and you breathe, and you feel the earth below, warm, forgiving, strong. It holds the memory of all that has fallen. It holds the promise of all that will grow, and in between it holds you, for just this moment, as part of its story. The pulse continues, it always has, it always will. High above the hush of moss and root, where the sun paints shifting light across swaying crowns, the trees speak in a language older than time. It is not spoken in syllables or shaped by lips, it flows in texture, in gesture, in the slow curling of a branch, in the quiet thickening of bark. The silent conversations of bark and branch unfold through seasons, across winds, and through stillness, telling stories of growth, of survival, of connection. These stories are not written in ink, but in the rings beneath the surface and in the shadows they cast upon the forest floor. Each tree wears its life openly if you know how to read it. The bark, rough or smooth, fissured or papery, is not merely a skin, it is a diary of days and decades. Where lightning once struck, there may be a scar healed over but visible like a memory that cannot fade. Where deer once rubbed their antlers, the bark may wear a worn patch soft with time. Some trees bear the claw marks of bears, others the gentle gnaw of insects. Bark holds these stories not as wounds, but as testaments. They are the record of encounters, of weather endured, of seasons passed in patient stillness. Branches too have their voice. Watch how they reach, toward the sun always, but not in haste. Slowly, deliberately they extend, adjusting course when shaded, bending slightly where wind pushes, growing thicker where storms have passed before. Their angles are responses. Their strength is shaped by experience. A branch that grows twisted is not flawed. It is wise. It has learned to move with the world rather than against it. The way a tree spreads its limbs tells you how it has lived. Open, expansive branches may suggest years of light and calm. Sparse, narrow limbs may reveal struggle, competition, the quiet battle for sky. In forests, trees do not grow alone. Their branches interlace with their neighbours, not merely brushing against one another, but learning from them. When one tree leans, another adjusts. When space opens from a fallen trunk, nearby branches stretch into it. They negotiate with one another wordlessly, ensuring balance, avoiding crowding, sharing light. This is not competition in the way we often imagine. It is cooperation born of necessity, of long familiarity. Trees that grow together know each other's shape. Their branches respond to proximity, shaping the canopy like puzzle pieces gently fitting over time. The conversation continues in leaves, but the message begins in branches. A surge of nutrients, a shift in angle, the choosing of where to bud and where to hold back. These are all decisions shaped by the flow of water and light, by the needs of the tree and the signals it receives from its roots and its neighbours. Bark and branch translate these needs into form. They adapt, respond and express, not through movement we can easily see, but through change we can only grasp when we return season after season. And notice how the shape has shifted, how the canopy has rearranged itself like a living map. Bark is also the tree's armour, but it is not lifeless. Beneath the outer crust, layers live and breathe. Cambium cells divide and swell, adding width with each passing year. Vessels rise with sap in spring, fall dormant in winter. Bark responds to injury, thickening where threats have pressed in, sometimes bleeding sap as a defence, sometimes growing burls, those strange bulbous growths that hold dense patterns of inner strength. What looks like stillness is a quiet vigilance. The tree listens to the world through its bark and it remembers in its wood. Some trees shed their bark, letting it peel away like old skin, revealing pale new layers beneath. Others hold it close, building up thick cracked walls. Both are responses to their place in the world. A birch with its silver scrolls lives where snow piles high. A redwood with its fibrous coat has weathered fires that would destroy lesser trunks. Eucalyptus bark strips away to discourage pests. In every case, the bark is part of the conversation, a response to environment, to danger, to time. It is a language of texture and protection, a slow dialect shaped by wind and flame. The shapes of branches tell us how time has passed. A broken limb, long since fallen, may leave a knot, a rough circle of memory sealed over by years of growth. A sudden fork may signal a lightning strike, a windstorm, or the weight of snow that bent the tree once long ago. A tree with a hollow centre, yet still alive, speaks of resilience, of choosing to grow even when the core is lost. These are not accidents. They are the tree's way of saying, I was here, I endured, I continue. Even fallen branches remain part of the dialogue. On the forest floor they feed fungi, become bridges for insects, are softened by rain and turn to soil. Their conversation does not end when they fall, it changes shape. A branch that once reached for the sun now supports the next generation. Moss grows upon it, seedlings root in its softened curve. Life continues in a new form, and the message is passed along, nothing is wasted. Everything contributes. The forest story is not linear, but circular. In some forests, trees are pruned not by people but by the passage of time. Old branches snap in winter, clearing space for new growth. Fire may strip the lower limbs, encouraging taller trunks. Wind may break the tops, leading to broader bases. In every case, the shape of the tree records these events. Branches are memory made visible. They hold the curve of years, the arc of endurance, the dance between challenge and adaptation. Now imagine walking beneath such trees. Look upward, not just for shade or beauty, but for narrative. See how the limbs stretch and tangle, how the bark darkens and splits. These are the sentences and paragraphs of the forest book. Each tree writes its own version, yet together they form a shared text, written in vertical lines and fractal spirals. The forest becomes a library of living shapes, each tree a chapter, each branch a sentence, each ring a syllable of time, and if you place your palm on the trunk of a tree, you might feel its stillness as a kind of calm attention. Beneath your hand, sap moves slowly, water travels upward from roots to leaves, and the bark holds it all in, like the cover of a story still being written. You are not an outsider to this story. You're part of the world the tree responds to. Your breath, your warmth, your presence, they are felt. Perhaps not in ways we fully understand, but felt nonetheless. The tree adjusts to the light you cast, the air you exhale, the space you take. The conversation continues, silent and sacred. These are the silent conversations of bark and branch. They do not clamour for our attention, but they welcome it when offered gently. To observe a tree over time is to begin to learn its language. To return to the same forest through the seasons is to see how each gesture unfolds slowly, like a long sentence patiently spoken. The forest speaks slowly, but it never stops speaking. And in its stillness, there is wisdom. In its silence, there is meaning. In its form, there is a story waiting to be heard. The longer you sit among trees, the more you begin to sense the quiet choreography of their forms. Bark and branch may not move with haste, but they respond to the world with a kind of slowness that is deeply wise. They do not rush to react, but they do not forget either. This is a language not of urgency, but of presence. In this section, we step deeper into the lives of these forms, how they connect, how they endure, and how they shape not only the forest but the creatures within it, including us. Branches are often the first to greet the sky. They lift, twist, and split in patterns that are far from random. Each fork in a branch tells of choice, toward the light, away from shadow, into the space where air is gentlest. This process, called phototropism, is the tree's way of reaching for what it needs, but it also gives us beauty, arched canopies, spiraled limbs, elegant silhouettes that shift as the tree matures. What looks like art is, in fact, the outcome of 1,000 tiny decisions, each one made in silence, shaped by sun, wind, and time. Bark, meanwhile, bears the signs of endurance. In older trees, bark thickens in response to exposure. It splits and buckles, forming deep ridges where water trickles down in the rain. These grooves are not random. They direct moisture, discourage pests, and even offer homes to mosses, lichens, and insects. A tree's bark is like a city wall, weathered, scarred, yet always adjusting to keep the life within protected. Beneath its outermost layers, new bark is always forming, preparing to take the place of the old. In this, trees teach us that protection is not rigidity, it is adaptation wrapped in stillness. Some trees whisper their stories in paper-thin bark like the birch, whose white scrolls peel away as if revealing secrets. Others like the pine wear thick, scaled bark that resists fire and insulates against heat. The eucalyptus sheds its skin in long ribbons, leaving behind smooth surfaces that reflect sunlight and deter insects. Each bark is shaped by the place it lives, by the pressures it has faced. There is no universal form, only responses, finely tuned over lifetimes. The bark does not seek perfection, only resilience. When wind moves through the forest, branches sway. This swaying is not weakness, it is strength. Trees that can bend with the wind are less likely to break. Their flexibility allows them to absorb the energy of storms, to move in harmony with the elements. Scientists have measured this movement, noting that even the strongest trees will shift and twist during gusts, redistributing force down into their trunks and roots. It is a form of silent conversation with the weather. I feel you, I yield to you, and in doing so, I remain. Sometimes branches break, ice builds up in winter or storms strike hard, but even then the tree does not despair. Instead, it seals the wound, grows around the break, and finds new directions to grow. These adaptations are often visible, sudden curves in the wood, clusters of branches around a scar, strange bulges where growth compensated for loss. These are the tree's way of saying, I survived, I endured, I changed, and I am still here. Such marks are not imperfections, they are resilience carved into form. Trees also shape the air around them. Through the arrangement of branches, they control how light filters down to the forest floor. Dappled shadows, narrow beams, soft pools of sunlight, all are the result of branching patterns that allow some light through and block others. In doing so, trees influence the growth of plants below them. A sapling might thrive or struggle depending on the design of the canopy above. Trees with broader, higher branches let in more light. Those with dense, low branches cast deeper shade. In this way, the upper forest shapes the lower, not with commands, but with presence. Animals respond to these shapes. Birds choose branches based on strength and position. Owls nest in broken crooks, where the wood cradles them. Squirrels leap from limb to limb, memorizing the space between each arc. Even insects choose bark of a certain texture, laying eggs or chewing small hollows into crevices. The tree's form becomes a shelter, a platform, a world. And though the tree does not move to accommodate, its shape becomes home to countless others. In silence, it offers safety. Branches also carry sound. When wind passes through leaves and needles, it creates vibrations. These sounds are different in every species. Broad leaves rustle, slender needles whisper. Some scientists believe these sounds may even communicate stress or health, though our instruments are only just beginning to listen. Perhaps one day we'll know more. For now, it is enough to stand still and hear the forest breathe, not just through air, but through form. Bark contains its own chemistry too. Many trees produce compounds that deter fungi and insects, that heal wounds, that seal off infections. When a tree is wounded, resin may flow sticky and golden, like the blood of the tree thickened with memory. This resin hardens in air, sealing the break. Over time, bark folds around it, burying the scar. In ancient trees, these sites become part of the trunk's contour, evidence of healing, of persistence. And sometimes, long after the tree has fallen, that resin remains, fragrant and bright, a reminder of the life it once protected. Even in death, the conversations of bark and branch continue. A fallen tree lies on the ground, but its bark remains. Insects burrow into it. Mosses grow across its surface. Birds peck at the softened wood. Over time, the bark peels back, revealing patterns and tunnels etched by beetles and worms. These etchings become a final message, a story of who lived here, who fed here, who made this tree their home. And as it breaks down piece by piece, it feeds the soil, strengthening the roots of those still standing. The forest listens, remembers, and responds. There are trees that seem to gesture with their limbs, oaks with wide, outstretched arms, maples with elegant symmetry, willows that drape like dancers frozen mid-bough. These gestures are more than aesthetic, they are survival strategies. Each shape balances light, weight, and space, but they also speak to us in ways we feel without needing explanation. A tree's shape can feel inviting, protective, inspiring. Its posture resonates. We build our stories around these forms, wishing trees, family trees, trees of life. Their shapes stir something deep in our memory, something wordless and ancient. And so, as we walk beneath these silent conversations, we begin to feel spoken to, even if we cannot translate the message. Bark and branch remind us that form is a kind of language, that stillness is not absence, that time moves in spirals and arcs, not in straight lines. The way a tree bends, the way its trunk twists, the way its limbs rise, these are responses to the life around it, shaped by wind and weather, by light and loss. The forest's silence is not emptiness, it is full of meaning. It is shaped by lives lived slowly, by decisions made without haste, by gestures that take decades to unfold. And in that silence we find something rare, a space to slow down, to match the pace of trees, to listen not with ears but with attention. The silent conversations of bark and branch do not require translation. They only ask that we stay long enough to see, to feel, and to remember that the world is always speaking, even when it makes no sound. As we near the final bend in this quiet journey through bark and branch, the forest welcomes us not with applause or fanfare, but with deeper stillness. The conversations we've explored, the stretch of limbs, the curve of trunks, the stories sealed in scars, do not end here. They continue, even now, in every tree that grows patiently under the open sky. But in this final section, we shift our gaze from the trees themselves to the way these silent gestures shape us too. For in every quiet message etched in bark and in every reaching branch there is something waiting to be understood, not only about the forest but about ourselves. Perhaps you have felt it before, that subtle hush that falls over the heart when you step beneath a canopy, the way your breath slows, the way your thoughts soften. Trees do not speak, and yet in their silence they offer a language of peace. The rhythm of their growth, so different from ours, pulls us gently out of the hurry of human life. Standing beneath their limbs, we are reminded that not all progress is visible, not all wisdom is loud. Bark and branch teach patience, resilience, and the grace of presence. There is an emotional texture to the forms trees take. The arch of a low branch, the twist of a gnarled trunk, the open arms of a tree standing alone in a field. Each seems to hold an emotion, quiet but clear. A grove of young birches might feel playful and curious. An ancient oak, heavy with moss, feels like an elder at rest. These feelings do not come from the trees themselves, perhaps, but from what we see in them. They are mirrors of our own moods and memories, and in this mirroring a conversation begins. Children climb trees not only to reach higher, but to connect with something older than themselves. Artists sketch them not just for form, but to trace the story held in each curve and shadow. We carve initials into bark, sometimes out of love, sometimes out of longing, perhaps hoping that our small presence will be remembered by something that will outlive us. And though the tree does not reply, it holds the mark, absorbs it slowly into its skin, and continues growing. It makes space for us, quietly. In winter, when leaves have fallen and snow outlines every limb, the architecture of the forest becomes starkly visible. Branches that were once hidden in green now reveal their full design. You can trace their choices, their hesitations, their bold reaches. It is like reading a poem stripped to its barest lines. Simple, powerful, honest. There is beauty in this bareness, and also comfort. The tree stands, even when all adornment is gone. Even when stripped, it remains whole. Trees also reflect our own cycles. In youth, they shoot upward, thin and eager. In maturity, they broaden, deepen, become more intricate. In old age, they slow. Their branches thicken, sometimes hollow, sometimes broken. Yet even then, they offer more than ever. Food for wildlife, shelter for birds, stability for the soil. Their gifts continue, even as they near their return to Earth. This is a quiet lesson in how to live fully through every season of life. Bark and branch do not resist change, they express it. Some trees live for centuries. They have witnessed the rise and fall of cities, the quiet passing of generations. And though they do not speak as we do, they endure as witnesses. Their trunks hold the rings of time. Each year, another thin line, another note in the song of their existence. If we could listen with finer senses, perhaps we would hear the slow music of their lives, the echo of droughts survived, of abundant springs, of winters that nearly broke them, of summers that fed them full of sun. Their shape too records these things. A tree that leans was shaped by wind. One that twists may have reached for light that moved with the years. One with a wide, flat crown stood in open space, generous with shadow. These are not just botanical facts. They are gestures of life in relationship with the world. No tree chooses its conditions, but every tree responds. Every branch is a reply to something: wind, weight, weather, light, or time. The forest is full of these replies. And in these replies we find reflection. We too grow under pressures we did not choose. We bend, we scar, we stretch, we learn to lean toward what feeds us. We carry our history in our posture, our habits, our senses. The forest does not judge this, simply reminds us that adaptation is not failure, it is wisdom. That scars are not shame, they are memory. That strength is not always straight, it is often curved. To walk through a forest is to walk through a living archive of these truths. Each tree is a letter, each grove a paragraph, each season a new chapter. And as we walk, we are not only reading, we are being read. The trees watch, not with eyes, but with presence. They sense our footsteps in the vibration of the soil, our warmth in the air, our breath joining theirs. We are not visitors, we are participants. Our bodies, like theirs, carry water, carbon, memory. Our breath, like theirs, is borrowed from the same air. So the conversation continues, not in words but in form, in the slow unfolding of limbs, in the quiet repair of wounds, in the stillness of presence that says, I am here, I have endured, I grow. Even now, when a storm breaks and branches sway like dancers, it is not panic but poetry. It is the forest singing its flexibility, its trust in roots, its long knowledge of what storms bring and what they leave behind. When sunlight filters through bare limbs at dusk, it is not just a picture, it is a moment of communion. And when the bark of a tree touches your palm even briefly, it is not an object, it is a gesture returned. Let us end with a quiet moment. You're walking home through the woods, the wind has settled, light is fading. Around you the trees stand like companions, not speaking but entirely present. You run your hand along the bark of one trunk. It is rough, warm from the day. You pause beneath its branches. Above you, leaves rustle like breath. In this stillness you feel not alone, but understood. The silent conversations of bark and branch are not meant to teach us everything, but they remind us of something we already know deep within, that life moves slowly, that beauty can be quiet, and that the truest connections are often wordless. The trees do not need to speak for us to hear them. We only need to listen in stillness and remember that we too are part of the forest's gentle, unfolding story. In the heart of every tree, hidden within the stillness of trunks and the rustle of leaves, is a seed. Small, unassuming, often overlooked, a seed carries within it the blueprint of forests yet to rise. And within that seed, tucked tightly like a sleeping thought, is memory of ancestors who stood through storms, of roots that drank from ancient rains, of sunlit seasons long past. The story of the forest begins here, not with towering canopies or deep-rooted trunks, but with the quiet presence of a single seed waiting in darkness. Seeds are miracles of design. Each one holds a tree folded in miniature, wrapped in layers of proaction and hope. Some are encased in hard shells designed to endure cold winters or scorching droughts. Others wear wings or tiny parachutes meant to catch the breeze and drift to far-off places. Some arrive inside fruit sweet and inviting, hoping to be eaten and carried away by a wandering creature. Each shape is purposeful, born from generations of adaptation, shaped by the trials of time. The seed does not choose its path, but it is prepared for wherever it may fall. When a seed lands on soil, its journey begins, but not with movement. First it rests, it listens, it waits. There is no urgency in its patience. It watches the rhythm of rain, the angle of light, the softness of earth. Only when the moment is right does it awaken. And when it does, it begins not by reaching upward, but by reaching down. The root comes first, tender and small, pushing into the dark to find stability, to find water, to anchor the dream of growth. Only then does the shoot emerge, drawn toward light, a quiet declaration of life unfolding. Not every seed succeeds. Some fall on rock, some are swept away, some are eaten. But this too is part of the forest's circle. There is no waste. The seed that is eaten may become energy for a bird who scatters another. The seed that rots enriches the soil for others. In the forest, failure feeds growth. Each ending is a kind of beginning. The circle is never broken. It only turns again and again, patient and sure. As the seedling grows, it carries the memory of its seed within. Its first leaves are often shaped like those that once protected it. These leaves drink in sunlight for the first time, turning light into food, into energy, into life. The roots dig deeper, the stem thickens, the leaves multiply. The forest watches this new life without judgment. It offers shade or sun, space or competition, wind or stillness. The seedling adapts, it learns. Each day adds a ring of experience, a quiet record carved not in words but in wood. In time, the seedling becomes a sapling, taller now but still vulnerable. Winds bend it, animals nibble at its leaves, shadows test its patience. Some years are lean, others kind. Through it all, the sapling does not hurry. Growth is measured in slow inches, in seasons survived. It is not racing toward greatness, it is simply becoming. And in becoming, it begins to give. Its leaves feed insects, its branches offer perches, its roots hold soil in place. Even before it reaches maturity, it participates in the life of the forest. The circle of seeds is mirrored in the lives of every creature in the woods. The squirrel buries acorns and forgets some, becoming gardener without knowing. Birds carry seeds in their feathers and droppings. Deer brush past saplings, knocking loose cones and pods. Even the wind is a planter, scattering seeds in secret places. The forest does not grow from a single hand, but from many, from the quiet work of countless lives, each contributing without plan, without praise. And shadows play their part. Without shadow, the seedling would dry and die. Shade offers protection from the burning sun, from the thirst of long days. In the understory, shadows shape who grows and how. Some trees thrive in full light, racing upward toward the canopy. Others grow slowly in dimness, waiting patiently for a gap, for a fallen elder to open space above. These trees grow thick, deliberate, storing energy year after year, ready to rise when the time comes. They are not lazy, they are listening. Shadows are not obstacles, they are teachers. Within the shade, other lives bloom too. Ferns uncurl, moss carpets the soil. Tiny fungi rise like stars from the earth. Seeds nestled in this coolness do not rush. They take their time, knowing the forest moves slowly. And when they do rise, they do so with a strength forged in stillness. Trees that begin in shadow often grow to be the strongest. Their roots are deep, their wood is dense, they have known darkness, and they have grown through it. As the sapling matures, it eventually becomes a tree. And one day, it too will bear seeds. Cones will open, fruits will ripen, pods will split, and the cycle will begin again. But even before that day, the tree gives. Its shade offers rest, its bark holds water, its branches cradle nests, its roots speak to other roots, offering warnings, offering sugars, offering connection. The tree becomes part of the great web, the living memory of the forest, speaking now, not as a seed, but as a bearer of seeds for the future. This is the eternal circle. Seed to seedling, to sapling, to tree, to seed again. It is a rhythm older than language, older than mountains, older than our own memory. It has no beginning and no end. Only motion, only change, only return. It is a promise whispered life to the next, grow, fall, give, return. The forest is not a place, it is a process, always unfolding, always becoming. And within that process there is grace. There is room for slowness, room for silence, room for second chances. A seed that waits for years may one day grow. A shadowed sapling may one day reach the sky. The forest does not rush us. It shows us that all things have their season, and that even in waiting we are still growing. So the next time you find a seed, curled in the palm of your hand, nestled in the crook of a tree or pressed into the soil, pause, look closely, feel the weight of its stillness. Within that quiet shell is a story too vast to see, too slow to unfold in a day. It is a story of sun and soil, of wind and rain, of root and rise and return. It is the story of the forest itself, told one seed at a time. And when you walk away, leave the seed where it lies. Let it listen. Let it wait. One day when the time is right, it may begin again. The seed lies still beneath the forest's floor, resting in the hush of earth and the weight of shadow. Above it, the forest pulses with slow, soft life, leaves shivering in wind, birds exchanging calls, light drifting between branches like gold dust. Yet in the soil, where light does not reach, another world unfolds. The seed, patient and full of silent energy, is listening. Every sound, every change in warmth, every trickle of moisture is felt. The shadows above are not a barrier but a blanket. They protect, they cradle, and under their quiet weight, the seed prepares, not for a sudden leap, but for the long work of becoming. This is the nature of shadows in the forest. They are not voids, they are not absence, they are fullness slowed. Every forest is filled with shadows, and within them, life takes its time. Light moves across the forest floor like a slow tide, painting and unpainting spaces in the underbrush. Some plants open only when the sun finds them. Others grow in shadow entirely, needing only a fraction of light to thrive. The shadows hold diversity. They allow for layers. Without them, the forest would collapse into sameness. The variety of life that thrives here does so because of contrast, of brightness and dark, of warmth and cool, of exposure and retreat. Shadows shape the trees as they grow. A seedling in the shade must wait, sometimes for years, before an opening above lets in enough light to rise. Some trees, like beeches and firs, are masters of waiting. Their roots dig deep. Their leaves spread wide to catch what light they can. They grow slowly, steadily, anchored in patience. When at last a neighbouring giant falls, a crash echoed in silence through the soil. The waiting tree seizes its chance. It surges upward, slow still by our standards, but swift in the rhythm of trees. What looks like sudden growth is the result of years of preparation in shadow. Waiting is not wasted time. It is deepening. It is learning. Seeds are not passive in the soil. Even as they rest, they sense. Some respond to temperature, waiting until winter has passed before awakening. Others wait for fire, their shells opening only after intense heat. Signals that competition has cleared, that ash has enriched the soil, that now is the time. Some require the touch of an animal's stomach to germinate, needing to pass through digestion to be softened and scattered. A seed's slowness is not laziness. It is precision. It is listening with purpose. When the seed begins to grow, it does not do so alone. Fungal threads often wrap around its roots, forming symbiotic partnerships. These fungi bring water and minerals. In return, the young plant gives sugars, its first earnings shared with its companions. From the very beginning, growth is collaboration. Beneath the forest floor, a community forms, threads linking seedling to elder, to shrub to flower to moss. This network does not discriminate by age. A seedling may receive support from trees hundreds of years old, and in time, when it matures, it will give in turn. Above ground, the seedling learns the patterns of light. It tilts its leaves, changes their size, alters their angle, all in response to the slow drift of sun. In places where light is fleeting, leaves grow broader. In high light, they may grow thicker, tighter. The plant is not rigid. It adapts to its conditions with quiet grace. Shadows do not defeat it, they shape its character. The forest makes space for different paths, and each seed follows its own, bending toward its own version of the sky. As the seedling becomes a sapling, shadows continue to play their part. They protect against harsh winds, they keep soil moist. They slow growth, yes, but also prevent overreach. A sapling grown too fast without a strong root system can topple in a storm. The forest, through shadow, teaches balance. It says, grow slow, but grow deep. It says, wait for your moment, and when it comes, be ready. And so the sapling listens, its wood thickens, its bark begins to form. It learns the feel of seasons. Shadows also preserve memory. Under dense canopy, fallen leaves decompose slowly, storing nutrients, feeding fungi, housing insects. These layers of decay are not death but transformation. A seed that grows here is nourished by the lives that came before it. Even the shadows hold memory. Where light once fell, where limbs once reached, where a fallen tree opened, a gap now closed. The forest remembers not in voice but in pattern. It remembers in the lean of trees, in the swell of earth, in the softness of the ground where generations have fallen and returned. Animals play their role in the circle as well. Squirrels, forgetful and frantic, bury acorns and scatter nuts. Jays hide seeds among roots and moss. Bears eat fruit and wander for miles before depositing seeds far from where they began. These animals do not plan forests, but they grow them. Their movements are part of the design, even if they do not know it. The forest does not require intention, only participation. Every creature, every act, even forgetfulness contributes. And still, the shadows shift. The sun moves, seasons pass, leaves fall and return, the seedling thickens, branches form. It knows frost, drought, wind. Each experience etches itself into the tree's structure. A bend in the trunk tells of a year of heavy snow, a scar of smooth bark marks where a limb once broke. These are not flaws, they are stories. The tree remembers not in regret, but in growth. Every challenge faced becomes part of its strength. Eventually, the sapling reaches high enough to join the canopy. It no longer lives in full shadow, but the memory remains. It still shares with the forest below, sending sugars to younger trees, offering shade to those just beginning. The circle continues, not because one part ends, but because all parts are always moving. The shadowed become the sheltering, the young become the old, and seeds once waiting become the trees that scatter seeds of their own. Even as the tree grows, it continues to drop seeds. Some are carried far, some fall close, some sprout immediately, others wait for years, some never grow at all. But the circle does not depend on one seed or one tree. It depends on abundance, on trying again and again, on releasing with trust. A single tree may release thousands of seeds in a lifetime, not because it expects each to succeed, but because it understands that life thrives in chance, in mystery, in persistence, and through it all the forest remains. Shadows come and go, light shifts, trees fall, others rise, but beneath it all the seeds wait and the circle turns. It does not end, it only deepens. To walk in a forest is to walk through this dance of growth and shadow, of stillness and motion, of death and return. It is to see not only what is standing, but what is waiting, not only what is lit, but what is hidden. The forest is not just made of trees, it is made of time, and time moves in circles, always. The seed knows this, the shadow knows this, and now perhaps so do we. The forest in its quiet wisdom does not rush. Even now, as the trees whisper their final notes and the sun leans low through the branches, the story continues. The seed has grown, the shadows have deepened and shifted, and the circle, endless and elegant, begins once more. But this time we look closer, not just at what grows, but at what returns. Because the beauty of the eternal circle is not only in what rises, but in what falls. Turns to the earth becomes part of the next beginning, and in that there is a peace, a gentle finality that asks for no applause, only understanding. Every tree that stands must one day fall. This is not a tragedy in the forest, but a transition. A great pine having offered shade, shelter, cones and needles for centuries may at last crack in a storm. Its trunk crashes to the floor, sending birds to flight and branches tumbling. And yet, in this fall it does not end, it simply changes. The fallen tree becomes a nurse log, softening with moss, cradling seedlings in its crumbling bark. Its decay is a gift, rich in nutrients, teeming with fungi, welcoming beetles and worms. In this way, even in death, the tree sustains life. The circle does not close, it widens, and the seeds, those tiny bearers of the forest's memory, continue their patient work. Some take root in the very body of the fallen tree, others nestle beneath its shade. Some grow slowly in its softened soil. 'Tis the tree's last embrace, one final offering before becoming the earth itself. And this too is the way of things. Nothing in the forest is wasted. No effort is lost. Every leaf, every root, every sigh of breath contributes to the next moment. The animals remember the fallen tree. Deer shelter beside its broad trunk. Squirrels cache food in its hollows. Birds build nests in the snags left standing. Fungi send their threads deep into the wood, breaking it down, unlocking the nutrients held within. From afar, the fallen tree may seem like stillord, but up close, it hums with activity. It is a host, a city, a school. Young trees rise from its back, their roots tangled with memory, and all around the shadows shift. The canopy above has changed. Where once a great tree blocked the sun, now light spills in. This sudden clearing becomes a haven for light-loving plants. Ferns stretch wide. Wild flowers bloom. Saplings stretch upward, eager and sure. The opening becomes a place of rebirth, not of loss. The forest accepts what has changed and adapts. It is not afraid to evolve. In time, the fallen tree vanishes, not suddenly, but slowly. Over years, even decades, it returns to the soil, Its wood becomes fibre for the forest floor. Its minerals feed new leaves, new bark, new seeds. And in this way the tree lives on, not in memory alone, but in substance. Its body is shared, scattered and transformed. It becomes part of the breath of new trees, the wings of birds, the softness of moss. It becomes forest again. This too is our story. We are not separate from this rhythm. Our lives, though faster, echo the same truths. We grow, we give, we fall, and we return. We pass on wisdom, love, kindness. We leave behind not just things but impressions, acts of care, shared moments, seeds of thought that may bloom long after we are gone. Like the tree, we offer what we can, and then, one day, we rest. And in resting, we continue the circle in ways unseen. The forest does not fear this cycle. It trusts it. There is no shame in returning to the earth. There is no fear in falling, because falling too feeds the future. The forest shows us that endings are gentle, that they do not arrive with cruelty, but with continuity. A leaf does not grieve when it drops. It twirls, it glides, and it becomes part of the story unfolding below. Even the oldest trees, when they fall, do so with grace. Their final act is to create space for light, for growth, for others. In their fall they rise again. The seeds scattered nearby respond. They sense the change, they awaken. And so the cycle begins again, not repeating, but spiralling forward, always changing, always renewing. Let us imagine one such seed now, nestled in the soft decay of a fallen tree. Above, the canopy is open, light touches its skin. Below, the soil is rich, full of memory. Around it, the forest moves in wind and bird song. The seed does not rush. It listens, it waits, it prepares. And one day, quietly, it splits. A root stretches downward. A shoot reaches up, the circle turns again. And what of us? We walk through the forest, feeling the hush of time in every step. We pause beneath the trees that have seen more seasons than we ever will. We touch their bark, trace their scars, and feel something stir inside us. We may not live as long, we may not grow as tall, but in every way that matters, we are part of this same rhythm. Our breath joins theirs, our bodies share the same minerals, our endings too become beginnings. The eternal circle of seeds and shadows reminds us that life is not a straight line but a loop, gentle, sacred, always in motion. There is no need to rush, no need to fear what comes next. Everything returns, everything gives, everything waits. And so, as you leave the forest, real or imagined, know that you carry this circle with you, in your breath, in your stillness, in your ability to pause, to listen, to trust the quiet moments of change. Somewhere a seed waits, somewhere a shadow moves, and somewhere in the soft hush of the earth, a new story begins.